I used to work in a previous job. I worked for Citizens Advice Bureau. So part of my role within the Citizens Advice Bureau was to provide an advice service for HIV clients who are living with affected by HIV. This is going back to the late 90s, probably about 99, or longer than I care to remember, put it that way. So my association with Freshwinds, then we were commissioned, the organisation CAB, to provide advice service via social services. One of the venues for the outlets for the advice service was Freshwinds, which at that time was based in Gravelly Hill in a rather nice semi-detached, large semi-detached property. And then, since then, I've variously been an advice worker providing a service via Freshwinds. I then supervised an advice worker who was working within Freshwinds until 2006, whenever I eventually joined the organisation as a full-time employee.
Why did you decide to join Freshwinds?
It was a combination of things. I mean, obviously, there were outside factors. I'd kind of worked for the same organisation for quite a long period of time. I enjoyed working with the client group. I think something that I was aware through my association with Freshwinds was it was a very client-centric, a very person-centric organisation. And I know that the quality of the work was underpinned by compassion, which I suppose is a word that is used in the wrong context sometimes. So I felt that it was, obviously there was going to be, in my development, I could see that there was potential for me to grow. I'd felt a little bit stunted, I think, within the organisation I was working for at that point in time. I think that our journey had perhaps come to an end. And from a personal level, I felt very comfortable amongst who would become my colleagues within the team. So there was familiarity, which kind of bred a lot of respect, I think, basically. It's like a journey for everybody. I mean, I think that one thing that anybody who's familiar with Freshwinds and the ethos and the way that they work with clients, it is a journey. So by the same token that the clients have taken a journey from their initial interaction with the organisation through to the positive resolution, hopefully, it's been a journey. And likewise, the organisation has taken a journey too, and the individuals who work for the organisation. So it's been a state of flux basically, but it's been a dynamic flux. It's never stood still, put it that way.
How would you describe someone needing to work at Freshwinds? Open to themselves, I think, initially, realising that everybody's got the potential to develop, wanting to go on that journey. It's not the kind of place that I think you would come to and not evolve as a person, professionally and personally. I think that you've got to have respect for people, because I think the whole organisation drives itself on this sort of respect, keeping people at the centre. So our clients drive what we do, and yeah, so respectful, dynamic. I think that at some point you mentioned ebbs and flows. Things do ebb and flow. Sometimes it's not always positive, but you've got to take the negatives, the setbacks with the positives, but also ambitious as well. I think ambitious not just for yourself, you're professionally, but also for wanting clients and the service users to develop, so wanting the best for them, basically. I mean, I think the other fortunate thing about working for an organisation like Freshwinds is that you're constantly working with people. So I would say that whilst there have been memorable occasions when perhaps there's been, we've had success within a sort of professional sense. There's been a contract or there's been a commission which we really fought really hard to get, and we put a lot of work into, and we were successful. More than that, I think that it's a series of
small in the sense of relatively, I suppose, but massive for the people, service users who've been used in the organisation. So seeing those people who maybe have come to Freshwinds and they've been on one particular level, and once they've left, you know, their lives, I'm not going to say have been completely transformed, although it's not an exaggeration to do that in some cases. So for me, the thing that keeps stimulating my interest in working for the organisation in particular is those series of small in a relative sense, but massive in an individual sense. So that's a driver. We do need to expand, we need to diversify in order to keep the core message there so that people can access it. So I think that we'll always be the same in the sense that we'll always be Freshwinds, but we might be quite a different organisation to people who are looking from the outside, because we'll have shaped, in some sense, we'll have shaped the market that we're going to exist in. So we're in an enviable position in the sense that we can dictate. I think that now is the time that an organisation like Freshwinds can start to say, well, services should be like this. We should be engaging with people like that. People should be involved in certain ways. So I think that will continue to be important, not just for individuals, but I think in a wider sense, maybe in community. I think that now this building seems to be a statement, if you like, in a lot of ways. It's bricks and mortar, it's here to stay, so it's starting to pad out that kind of ethos in a way as well. If you're dynamic in that sense, then if you're always seeking opportunities, if you're too large or too unwieldy, then you're not going to be able to adapt yourself to take advantage of those opportunities so that you can then, you know, stimulate your own growth. So I think that in a way, the size of the organisation is a plus, but it's in terms of its size, it's got a massive reputation. So the fact that 20 years is a long time, obviously, so there's been a lot of graft and a lot of foundations, a lot of work's been put in. The upshot and the byproduct or the product of that is this reputation. So with size, being dynamic, the skills of the people who are involved in Freshwinds, and the ethos and the way people approach that, coupled with this fantastic reputation which exists, that puts us in a very strong position, I think. We have our kind of core business, if you like. We're people-centric, person-led organisation that provides a variety of services which cut across a number of different areas of expertise, health, social care, employment and training, social welfare law. It's a hybrid of an organisation which has got a very core central purpose, and that is to enable people, to empower people to improve their lives. It allows me to keep perspective on the wider picture and how, you know, everybody is an individual and how everybody is kind of fitting into the outside world, if you like, basically. Which a lot of professions perhaps don't allow you to do that. You're working within a bubble, within a very restrictive cocoon. But with Freshwinds, there's an ethos behind it.
Wow, is that important to you?
Very important, very important. I'm not going to say it's some kind of like pseudo-religious or quasi-religious kind of thing, but at the same time, if you like people, then you want to work in a people organisation, basically, and I think that Freshwinds allows you to do that. I think the same challenges that are going to face the majority of organisations in our position or who work within the fields that we work in. I mean, there's this weird irony that at the time when there's a greater need for an organisation like Freshwinds, and I suppose speaking from a personal perspective, advice and welfare, debt services, etc., there's less in terms of resources to pay for it. So I think that we're going to have to be very creative in the way that we manage to see the maximum number of people with this dwindling resource. So that's a huge challenge, but like I say, I think that's a challenge that cuts right across it
I think there's also a challenge to ensure that we continue to keep going forward, because with the lack of resources, I suppose there can be a stagnation. I don't think that that's going to happen. I'm quite confident that it won't do, because, like I said, there's this undercurrent of a dynamic kind of ethos within Freshwinds. But by and far, the largest challenge is the resources and how they're going to be put to the best use. It's a horrible cliche, but sort of from cradle to grave, or pre-cradle to grave almost. I mean, within certainly Advice and Welfare department, we work with children. We've got the children's service from within the which Dr. Shah, etc., are providing. So there's a kind of support from stages in people's lives where perhaps they've got very young children, right through to services for older adults, and touching on every single significant life event in between. So we've got, services providing information on welfare benefits, for example, immigration if people are coming to the country. We've got services around employment and training, which I suppose caught on other significant events like a redundancy, or perhaps from a more positive perspective, changing careers, etc. Right down to working from sort of on a palliative basis, so that whenever people come to the end of their lives, there's a very strong Freshwinds intervention there as well. So it is quite significant, I think, that it does cover a lifespan, if you like. And I think that's quite a nice analogy of the services we provide.